You spent years planning my life. I spent 2 years building my own. Ryan held up his phone. His father stared at the screen. Everything he believed about his son was about to collapse. The argument started on a Tuesday evening. Ryan came home later than usual. His father, David, was sitting at the kitchen table, surrounded by paperwork, university bills, tuition statements, loan documents, the kind of papers that had become normal over the last 3 years. David barely looked up. "You're late." "I know." "You miss another class?" Ryan set down his backpack. "Actually, I need to tell you something." David immediately heard it in his voice. Something was wrong. He leaned back. "What happened?" Ryan took a breath. "I'm leaving law school." Silence. David stared at him. "What?" "I'm dropping out." For several seconds, David thought he had misunderstood. Then Ryan repeated it. "I'm done." The room became very quiet. David slowly stood up. "No." Ryan frowned. "No?" "No." David pointed at the papers. "You're finishing." Ryan almost laughed. "I'm 21. I don't care." David's voice hardened. "You're finishing what you started." Ryan crossed his arms. "I never wanted this." David looked stunned. "What do you mean you never wanted this?" "I mean exactly that." The tension in the room changed instantly. Because they both knew this conversation wasn't really about law school. It had been building for years. David had spent most of Ryan's life talking about the future, the career, the degree, the opportunities, the security. At first, Ryan argued. Then he stopped. Eventually, it became easier to nod than to fight. Everyone assumed that meant agreement, including David. Now the bill for that silence was finally coming due. "You applied." David's voice sharpened. "You got accepted." "You stayed for 3 years." Ryan nodded. "Because every time I tried talking about something else, you acted like it wasn't a real option." David slammed his hand on the table. "Because it wasn't." "There it is." "What?" "That's the problem." David shook his head. "The problem is that you're throwing away your future." Ryan looked directly at him. "No." "I'm finally choosing it." For a moment, David couldn't answer. Then he laughed, not because it was funny, because he couldn't believe what he was hearing. "Choosing what?" Ryan hesitated. Then he said it. "Music." David froze. The silence lasted several seconds. Then came another laugh, shorter, angrier. "You can't be serious." "I'm serious." "Music?" "Yes." David rubbed his forehead. Out of everything Ryan could have said, this was the one answer he couldn't accept. Music was a hobby. Music was weekends. Music was something people enjoyed after work, not work itself. "You want to throw away a law degree for music?" Ryan shook his head. "No? I'm choosing music over law." David felt anger rising. "Have you completely lost your mind?" No? I've spent years pretending this was my dream. David pointed toward the tuition bills. You know what those cost? I do. Do you? His voice grew louder. I worked overtime. I skipped things I wanted. I invested in your future. Ryan stayed silent. David continued. I put you in a position most people would be grateful for. Ryan finally spoke. And what if it's not the life I want? David stared at him. What kind of question is that? My question? No. David shook his head. That's the kind of question people ask before making terrible decisions. Ryan's patience finally snapped. You keep saying my future. The room fell silent. You keep saying my career. Another pause. You keep saying my life. Ryan pointed at himself. But none of it ever felt like mine. The words landed hard. For the first time, David looked genuinely hurt. Not angry. Hurt. And that somehow made the conversation even worse. You think I did all this for me? David asked quietly. Ryan didn't answer. That answer was enough. David laughed bitterly. Unbelievable. Then his expression changed, because something suddenly didn't make sense. Ryan looked far too calm, far too prepared. Most people dropping out of law school would be terrified. Ryan wasn't. It was as if he'd already made peace with the decision, as if this conversation had happened in his head months ago. David narrowed his eyes. How long have you been planning this? Ryan hesitated. A small mistake, but David noticed. How long? Ryan looked away, and for the first time all evening, he seemed nervous. That caught David's attention immediately, because now he knew there was something else. Something Ryan hadn't planned to reveal. Something much bigger than law school. And suddenly, neither of them was talking about a future anymore. They were talking about a secret. David stared at his son. How long have you been planning this? Ryan looked away. How long? 2 years. The number hit harder than anything else that evening. The same amount of time David thought they were working toward the same goal. What exactly have you been doing for 2 years? Ryan pulled out his phone. He opened a bank account and placed it on the table. David looked down. The balance didn't make sense. At first, he thought he was reading it wrong. Then he checked again. The amount was real. What is this? My money. What money? The money I've earned. Doing what? Music. The room fell silent. Ryan opened another screen. Income reports, payments, monthly earnings. David looked through them, one by one. This wasn't luck. This wasn't fantasy. It was income. Real income. For 2 years. You've been doing this the entire time? Ryan nodded. At night. The argument suddenly felt different, because Ryan wasn't asking for money. He wasn't asking for permission. He was presenting a decision that had already been made. Why didn't you tell me? Ryan laughed once, You already know why. No? Really? Ryan looked directly at him. Every time I mentioned music, you treated it like a joke. David opened his mouth, then closed it again, because he couldn't deny it. Ryan continued. You decided what success looked like years ago. I was trying to help you. I know. Then why are you acting like I'm the bad guy? Ryan shook his head. Because you never listened. I listened. No. Ryan's voice rose. You waited for your turn to talk. For a moment, neither spoke. Then David pointed at the phone. So what happens when this disappears? It won't. You don't know that. I know more than you think. David laughed. There it is. What? You're 21 and suddenly you're an expert. Ryan stepped forward. No, I'm just tired of being treated like I'm 12. The room became quiet. Ryan wasn't speaking like a child anymore. He had answers, plans, numbers. The more he talked, the harder it became to dismiss him. And that scared David. Because if Ryan was right, then David might be wrong. So that's it? David asked. You quit. You walk away. You waste 3 years. Ryan immediately shook his head. They weren't wasted. What does that mean? I learned something important. What? Ryan answered instantly. I learned what I don't want. The sentence hit David harder than the shouting ever had. Then Ryan picked up his phone again. There was one more thing. David looked at him. Ryan opened a transfer form. The amount filled most of the page. What is this? The tuition. David frowned. What? I calculated everything. The tuition, the books, the fees, everything. Ryan's voice became quieter. I saved enough to pay you back. The room froze. Pay me back? Ryan nodded. You always said you invested in my future. I did. So let me repay the investment. David stared at him. For the first time that evening, all the anger disappeared. Because suddenly, he understood something. Ryan thought this was about money, the tuition, the bills, the sacrifice. But it wasn't. Not really. David slowly sat down. You think this is about the money? Ryan looked confused. Isn't it? No. David shook his head. Not even close. David looked at the transfer form again, then back at Ryan. A sadness crossed his face. You've been getting ready to leave me for 2 years. Ryan frowned. That's not what this is, isn't it? David nodded toward the phone. You built the career. You saved the money. You made the plan, and I didn't know any of it. Ryan looked away. I wasn't trying to shut you out. But you did. The words landed hard. David shook his head. You spent 2 years preparing for this conversation. His voice grew quieter. I walked into it tonight, completely blind. The room fell silent. For the first time, Ryan couldn't find an answer. Finally, David spoke again. You know what scares me? Ryan didn't answer. For 20 years, my job was protecting you. His voice softened. I knew how to do that. I knew how to solve problems. But now you're making choices I can't control. Ryan listened quietly, and that terrifies me. The confession surprised both of them, because it was the first completely honest thing David had said all evening. Ryan slowly sat down. For the first time since the argument began, neither seemed angry, just tired. You think I'm not scared? Ryan asked quietly. David looked at him. Ryan smiled faintly. I am. A lot. But it's still my choice. David nodded slowly. For the first time, he understood the difference. Ryan wasn't choosing music because he wasn't afraid. He was choosing it despite being afraid. Several minutes later, David pushed the phone back across the table. Keep your money. Ryan looked surprised. What? You don't owe me anything. Ryan stared at him. David took a long breath. You spent years trying to become the person I wanted. His voice cracked slightly. I think you've earned the right to become the person you want. Neither spoke for a while. Then David smiled sadly. Just promise me one thing. What? If this falls apart? Ryan laughed. I know. You can come home. David nodded. Always. Sometimes the hardest thing for a parent isn't paying for a child's future. It's accepting that the future no longer belongs to them. And sometimes the hardest thing for a son isn't choosing his own path. It's realizing that behind all the pressure and arguments, there was never hatred, only fear. If you were David, would you have supported Ryan's decision? Let me know in the comments, and subscribe for more emotional stories like this.